According to African Alliance, Botswana's consumer financial services provider, Letshego Holdings has an increasingly diversified loan book that's exposed to high growth potential, and the company is well capitalized and profitable. For more, we are joined by James Stark, equity analyst at African Alliance. James, thank you so much for joining us. Sounds like a lot of positivity happening at Letshego, but let's perhaps unpack the diversification of their loan book. How has this contributed to bringing or improving their risk profile, and has it begun to contribute to growth?
Thank you, Nasipo. Yes, I mean, over time, we've seen Letshego's reliance on the Botswana economy decrease. They were started out as a Botswana-focused lender. Now, less than 50% of the lending is taking place out of Botswana. What that does is it just limits the impact that things that might impact the consumer in Botswana, and then feeding through into how that impacts on Letshego. From a growth aspect, we're seeing promising growth coming out of Mozambique in particular.
Right.
It's a fast-growing economy. It's a very underdeveloped market, and as a result, that poses good growth opportunity going forward. Just generally, you don't want all your eggs in one basket, and by having increased exposure outside Botswana, we think is a good thing. Their recent acquisition in 2013 of Micro Africa Limited increased the exposure to South Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. So there again, they're more reliant on less any one particular economy.
And all of these new markets that they've expanded into, do they all relatively hold high growth potential? Would you say these are good markets to be in?
Yes, I think they're good markets to be in. I think you can't lump them all together. Kenya, for example, is a relatively mature market, so I don't think the growth there is going to be as intense. But somewhere like South Sudan, certainly high growth potential, very limited financial services available in that market. So yes, over the longer run, I do think it varies. It just mixes it up a bit. It changes their exposure, and I mean, very central to their lending model is the payroll deduction as a collection mechanism.
Right.
And this is very dependent on the policies that are playing out within each economy. Different countries over different periods of time, some have done away with the lending, which makes collecting very difficult. Some have stuck with it. So there again, you're not only reliant on any one country, and this spreads the risk over those different countries.
Let's look at payroll deductions in a little bit more detail. How significant is this as a potential risk factor, as you've highlighted that they're likely having to deal with different policies and different regulatory environments?
So I think you can decompose it into two parts. On the one hand, yes, they're very reliant on it. North of sort of 95% of their collections are through the payroll deduction. But at the same time, you've got to factor in the risk of governments actually doing away with it. And the experience on the continent's been mixed. I mean, if we take Lesotho, for example, in 2009, they used to have payroll deduction lending. They did away with it. And now recently, they've actually reintroduced it. Because what really happened was a lot of these smaller economies are very reliant on the liquidity that these microlenders provide into the market,
right,
stimulating local demand and economic activity. When you take that out, the demand, the liquidity dries up, and the ability of consumers to purchase is drastically reduced. Then what happens is you typically see sort of a more unscrupulous loan sharks coming into the space. The demand for credit doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And with that comes more exorbitant interest rates and possibly more undesirable collection practices. So I think in Lesotho, you've seen the example there, the government have realized that it's on balance, it's probably better to have a payroll deduction system where you've got two or three big lenders who you can actually better regulate the practices that are taking place.
Let's look at some of Letshego's banking aspirations in particular. I understand that they've applied for a banking license in Namibia, and there are other geographies where they've put in or are considering putting in applications. How would a banking license improve their business prospects? Okay,
just to summarize, I mean, they've looking to start their banking operations in Mozambique in October. Their licensing decision in Namibia is pending, and they're reapplying for a banking license in Botswana. How it will change the business, we think this is very important. It will allow better ownership of existing customers, and customers will be less easily poached away by other banks. It will allow Letshego to attract additional clients to their business, in that a lot of clients actually take their consumer finance from the provider who provides them with their bank account. Right. So this will allow Letshego to actually offer products to people that traditionally or at the moment don't use Letshego because they're getting their finance from, for example, like an FNB Botswana or Barclays Botswana in that example. So it'll allow better ownership of the customers. In addition, it'll allow for the generation of non-interest revenue through transaction fee income. And also, I suppose the biggest thing would be it would facilitate a move maybe away from a deduction code lending collection model, whereby you, as they own the customer account, they'll have a full 360-degree view of that customer, and thereby be able to make decisions on a more sort of credit analytical basis as a purely as opposed to payroll deduction.
So in your view, this would be a solid positive step should they get those licenses approved?
Absolutely, because at the moment traditionally they limit their lending largely to the civil service because the employment in civil service is far more stable and predictable, and this will allow them to maybe move into the private sector more aggressively.
James, talk to us about their composition. I understand that there isn't a single large strategic shareholder and that they've been shot down in the past in previous applications for not having that particular shareholder. Does this make Letshego a suitable asset for a buyer who might be looking to buy such an entity?
Absolutely, we think so. I mean, the Bank of Botswana, one of their reasons was, as you mentioned, the lack of a strategic shareholder. So for someone with banking history and African growth aspirations, I think this represents a favourable target. The price multiple is not demanding, it's trading on a 6 times forward price earnings ratio. We're seeing, interestingly, the ICT platform, the core banking platform that Letshego have implemented or currently implementing, is this developed by Tata Consulting Services, the same people who have developed the Capitec core banking platform. So from an integration perspective, someone like Capitec wouldn't necessarily face the same challenges if they were to expand and look for an African acquisition, and that there's a lot of the hard work's been done, the license have been applied for, the collections infrastructure is in place, and your ICT systems are compatible.
Very briefly, from your view, are there any red flags that a potential investor should be aware of if they want to approach the Letshego conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously they're still quite reliant on the payroll deduction and what governments do about that. But also, I mean, on the horizon, we've got elections taking place in Botswana, Namibia, and Mozambique next year. Elections in the region always are difficult to predict and the impact they will have on the civil service. But Botswana and Namibia recently have been pretty stable, so we don't expect too much unexpected from that side.
James, thank you so much for making the time to join us at the desk. Of course, that was James Stark, equity analyst at African Alliance.